Morning, Kay.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm very good. Thanks for coming.
No problem, man. Glad to be here.
I feel like I've just done a podcast, a meeting, a life-changing event with our chat about Birdman and various other things.
Yeah.
I do like talking to you because you've generally just got positive vibes about how you can make things happen.
Yeah, I mean, you grow up around areas like this and you get used to figuring out how to be useful. You get used to figuring out how to use, to create nothing, to create something from nothing. And so I'm always on the lookout for ideas. I'm a great synthesizer or sampler. So I'm always looking at how to take something from over there and then mix it together and create something different.
I think similarly. For similar reasons. Well, that's a good start. I mean, it's a good point to start. I mean, one thing that I normally ask people, if we've met before, can you remember when we first met?
In the church.
It was in the church, yeah. And I remember I tapped you up. You must get tapped up left, right and centre. You're like that. Dong, go away, go away. I'm pretty sure I've seen something on Facebook. So I've grown up listening to your music. So it's not like I haven't heard of you. Do you know what I mean? And I've seen something on Facebook and it was, I can't remember what it was. It was like a film, not a film. It was some kind of footage over like a wellness themed kind of podcast, something. I can't remember what it was, but I didn't think you were into that kind of like world as well. Yeah. And I remember listening to it thinking, he's got a bit of wisdom in there as well as the music. And because we work in, areas where you're from and all the rest of it, I thought, well, you might be interested in maybe helping out a little bit. Yeah. And that was when I went down to meet you, didn't want it in Bedminster. Yeah. And I remember we'd done that mind map of various bits. And the reason why I asked you to come on today, because I remember one of those pieces of that jigsaw we spoke about was get yourself a podcast.
Yes.
So when I seen you the other night at Lakota, I was like, man, this is like a mad circular thing. Why am I asking him on the podcast? So anyway, thanks for coming.
But it's funny because I think maybe like a few days before the show, I did see the podcast. I saw there's a guy I know. I think Magsy, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so I saw that one and I was like, and I saw you interview and I was like, yes, you did it. So
yeah. No, well, as you know, as we were speaking about off, it is.
Yeah.
Just keep on keeping on.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks for the tip.
Cool.
It's working. You're here. I want to know a little bit about, I know you just probably the kind of thing you talk about a lot if you're on podcasts. People want to know what it was like growing up. But for people that don't know, that aren't from, communities like round here in the West and other parts of South Bristol, do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Well, I grew up just over the road over there, place Ilminster Avenue. So this is like Knoll West. I went to Marywood Boys School. I went to Philwood Boys School. I went to the infant school just down there as well. So I've spent the majority of my life around here, and growing up in the 70s, it was a lot of fun. It was just like getting up to mischief, just like kids do. I think the obviously challenges is it's very working class. So people are working hard to sort of stay afloat and stuff. You don't really know that when you're growing up. You just see your parents working, you see your mates' parents working, and you kind of get on with it. That's kind of what we did. I got involved in music at a really young age. I have a very musical background, household as well. And that really was the thing that changed my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was going down the same route as everybody else around me. I wanted to be a racing car driver. And they told me to
Back then it was joyriding.
They told me to be realistic. And I was kind of like, I don't know, that kind of bothered me for a while. Do you know what I mean? I was like...
And why do you think that was? Was it because of it was? Well, why do you think that was?
Well, I got bothered.
No. As in, why is that realistic?
Why isn't it realistic?
Why do you think they're saying to you that's not realistic? Because I think we know what the answer is. But
of course, because they school is about herding people into these sort of silos of styles of thinking, But I was always an outsider. I never thought like the people that was teaching me, and I, from a very early age, my mum made us clothes, so we always stood out. We always thought differently. My team was my brothers, and we always had this idea about geeking out on things, you know. We were like making stuff in the house, and we would always like go out together in our little group and have these like weird little things. And so, you know, when we watched this film called Wild Style, that was the turning point. We kind of saw the blueprint for like what culture could be, what a community could be about. And we kind of just embraced it. And we never really looked back. And we started in school, we did school discos, we did breakdancing, we did rapping. Thank the school, Mary Boys School, for that. They gave us a little room once a month on a Friday. And we kind of just got busy. And then we took that whole thing to Eagle House Youth Club.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then we had once a month there. And then when we got there, we started to invite other crews in. So breakdancing blew up. Yeah. So we'd invite kids from Hartcliffe, from Woodywood, from Bedminster, from Totterdown, you know, from Easton. And we kind of built this like little thing every month. You'd come to Northwest and you could learn and see these guys scratching and breakdancing and rapping. And it was like we were just trying to build this thing that we'd seen in America. And we said, you know what, we're seeing kids in America do this thing who look like us, like, we're going to do that, you know. And for me, it was like, I still didn't know that I was going to do that for a living, but I just knew I could do it. There wasn't many things I was good at in school. I wasn't very academic. I was very sporty and I was very creative, but I didn't want to be, you know, an artist. I wasn't very good at designing or anything. Sports I was good at. I couldn't see myself having a career in rugby. I was all right at athletics, but I wasn't like, you know, the minute guy. I couldn't do anything. You know, I mean, I wasn't spectacular. I was just kind of average. And so I didn't really know what I was going to do. And so, but when I found this music thing, if you want to find me or my brothers, go to the bedroom. We'd be in there playing music 8 to 10 hours. Yeah, never came out.
Like you know, anyone that's good at music, that's it.
Yeah, we lived in there. We lived it and we breathed it. So if we weren't in our house, you'd find us in someone else's house doing the same thing. So that was going on for years and years and years. And then, you know, Eagle House gave us the room and we started to go there. And that was brilliant. You know, we spray painted the room and we just lived in there. And then we got a squat. We moved to St. Louis Road in Bedminster, just by Victoria Park. Yeah. We had a squat. There's some guys there. They had a squat. This is where like Mark Stewart and Tackhead was, and Viv Gordon and the Authentics, sort of real hardcore Bristol bands. And, you know, there was a couple of guys and they had a room and they said, you know what, use it. Put your sound system in there and you can, you know, practically live in there. So it was like, okay, we just moved our sound system in there, practically lived in that room for like two or 3 years. And then at the bottom of that garden, there was a scout hut. And so we took over the scout hut and started doing, you know, these fresh fall parties. And it was there that my brother had this idea, Flynn had this idea. He's like, right, I want to make this record. I was like, we're going to do what? He's like, yeah, I want to make this record. I got this idea. I was like, whoa, man. And he's like, yeah, he just met Smith and Mighty, made this record, took them a year, and their track was Wishing on a Star. And that was the thing that kind of blew up for us and took us to the next part of the journey.
Madness. But you got to be there. You got to be in it to win it, haven't you?
Well,
you didn't know that this was going to happen, obviously, did you?
No.
You were pursuing a dream.
Yeah, and I think because, you know, I tell to people this a lot, I talk about this a lot. If it was today, it'd probably be a lot more challenging because of the internet, because of social. But because there was nothing else to do, like we were so drilled in, we were locked in, we were focused. That's all we did every day in, day out. And that's why we became so good, you know, because we just practiced it.
It's interesting because there's some questions I'm going to, and we'll touch on that kind of stuff as well. But there is something in that. It's like back in the day, there is an element of boredom. Yeah. You ain't got anything to do. You've got to find your lane. Yeah. You know, some people will never find their lane, but like some people will. And then it's that level of focus that hones the craft, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, and I would take it to the next step. I think I know we were obsessed. You know, I see people today and they've got a general interest.
That's not good enough, is it?
Right? No. And it wanes and they wonder why, you know, it doesn't work. Well, Malcolm Gladwell says it takes 10,000 hours. You know, Naval Ravikant says it takes 10,000 iterations. You know, I say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And so that's obsession.
Yeah.
You know, it's not casual interest. It's not, you know, I'll just do it when I feel like it. It's you're not eating because you're in the room.
I was starting to think that I might be like that, and I thought, no, I do eat.
Right? Yeah, you're not eating because you're just so in it. Yeah. And so like when I meet young people and I can see in their eyes they've got that obsession. It's like they don't need much guidance.
Yeah.
Right? You just
drive and passion.
Yeah.
And then the ability.
Yeah.
But maybe ability is not the top thing on the list. I don't know.
I think you just need stickability. Like if you're obsessed and if you've got an idea and passion gets you in the door, but it won't keep you going. You need to be like obsessed. You need to be so, driven that nothing's going to stop you. No no's are going to stop you. You're so determined. You're so focused. You're eating jacket potatoes every day. You don't care, right? You're not interested in relationships. You're not interested in your friends. You know that this thing is the only thing that's getting your attention. You just spend all day doing it. Did we know we were going to become successful global DJs and producers no, of course not. But what we did know is this thing was fun. This thing's entertaining us. This thing is like demanding our focus and our attention. And there was a little bit of like competition between us. And that's good, right? That's good because, that makes you want to get better. That makes you want to do better breaking moves. That makes you want to write better rhymes. That makes you want to learn better scratches. And then when that moved into DJing and actual producing, that makes you want to make better records.
Yeah, I'm going to jump straight into these questions because I think whatever, like the different things that you've done will come out within the questions. Yeah. How would you describe the spirit of youth culture in the 1980s compared to today?
Rebellious. We just wanted to tear down the system.
And why do you think that was?
Because it was shit.
The system was shit. Life was shit.
It was hard.
Society was shit.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. And I don't think that... I think we took it for granted.
It's pretty shit now, to be honest.
Yeah,
but we'll hear more about that.
But I think today, the difference between today, everybody kind of talks about it, but the way people go about change today is very different from we go about change back then. Back then, because you didn't know what anyone else in the rest of the world was doing. I mean, we saw Wild Style and we heard about things going on around the world, but it wasn't like today. It wasn't constantly in your face with social. And so, like when we saw Wild Style, we saw the oppression in America. We saw the abuse that was going on with the youth that looked like us in America. And we were like, that's happening here, right? We're going through the same thing. And although in America we saw Wild Style, it was say 95% black and the rest Puerto Rican and white. Over here it was 50-50. I grew up with white kids in Old West that had it rougher than me, or as rougher, right? Yeah. The Irish, we lived next to the Irish, and they were always being abused. And my dad, they're saying what they saw when they grown up: no dogs, blacks or Irish. And so there was this kinship over here. Do you know what I mean? With the Welsh, the Irish, the Scottish, and there was just this sort of kindred spirit. And so we kind of bonded on that. We all were trying to find significance. We were all trying to live our best lives. We were all trying to have this aspiration of just, maybe just owning a car or owning a house. It wasn't like, like now it's like, be a millionaire. Then it was just like,
you're under 10 years of not eating. Sort yourself out.
Right. Like just back then, it's like, just get out of poverty. Just get out of, for me, my first thing was, I just need to get out of Old West. And I need to go to the place where everybody else is making music. And that was St. Paul's in Montpellier. And when I moved there, it was like, all right, I made it this far. Right?
Yeah, this is steps. It was the steps on the journey or on the map or whatever.
And so I needed to be around people that were living and breathing what we were doing every day. And so we all moved there. And that's when it started to happen on another level. I met Di. Sub was already part of the crew. I met Ronnie down there eventually. I met Smith for Mighty. I met the early Massive guys and FBI and Too Bad. And
would you say most of them come through youth club, youth provision kind of situations where there was an opportunity to hone their craft to some level? Obviously, there's other steps like what you're talking to, but like the starting point, the seed like the seed was set in a lot of those places, because you wouldn't have a load of kit at home to start with, would you?
No,
But
I mean, you hear the stories, Barton Hill Youth Club, you got North West.
I've had Johnny Nation on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you hear the stories,
Yeah.
and like, when you hear the stories, you start seeing that there's levels. It starts in your bedroom. Maybe some of the times it starts in school.
And those things don't really happen. They're not widespread. And
And I'll tell you why. It's not known that that's the route to do it, because on social, you see people talking about doing things on social. And it's like you've just jumped too many steps. You're going straight to socials, you're posting, you're doing stuff that other people are doing, but those people did the steps before they got to the social. And so you've kind of jumped steps. You don't know what your brand is, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you stand for, you don't have any purpose or meaning, and you're just doing this thing because you think you need to be in front of a camera being popular, and that's what gets you success. It's like, no, you got to go right back to the core. Go back to just sitting in your bedroom, meditating and drawing, doodling. Get something that consumes you 24 hours a day, and then that's what your interest is in. Then what all the stuff that you do supports that. That's how you build your allies. That's how you build your teams. That's how you tell people what you're doing. At the moment, you're just talking nonsense.
So are you saying that the comparison to nowadays, and obviously there's lots of different people in different situations, so I know you don't mean everyone, is that because of probably that fast culture and social media and the various other things that go around it, the time and the craft is not necessarily being put into these things.
100%.
Because of probably the boredom bit as well, isn't there in the same way?
Yeah. There are steps to it. Socials and online, that is a strategy that's used like you use socials and the internet like you'd pour petrol on fire. Like, get the fire going. Have an interest, have a passion, create something, create a product or a service. Do something in the community. Make yourself useful. Make yourself
something of meaning.
Yeah.
Well, that's my thing. But
exactly.
Not everyone's thing, is it?
Yeah.
I guess.
But there is some sort of meaning and purpose in there. There's some sort of drive. You're serving a need. You've figured out what some people need. You recognize the problem. You're solving it. You're fixing it. Or you're learning about yourself and you want people to contribute to that. And so you're becoming. You're not there yet. You're becoming. You're growing.
It's part of the thing as well. I know you haven't said it, but I know that that you believe in all this kind of stuff as well. Is if you're not doing it for long enough, you haven't made enough mistakes anyway, have you?
Yeah,
exactly. No one comes up with some polished, flipping, amazing thing out of nothing.
But that's why you need the 10,000 hours or the 10,000 iterations, and especially the 10 years, because you need. Like I tell people, I tell people that you need to. It's better to make a mistake that costs you 50 quid. Right, when no one's watching, than one that's going to cost you 50 grand when everyone's watching. Yeah. Right, and the 10 years of fumbling around, stumbling on a style, trying to figure it out while no one's watching will serve you well.
Yeah, I think interestingly, we were chatting about Birdman and whatever. It's not connected in any way really, other than that was like 18 years ago.
Right.
I ended up winning a Birdman competition in New Zealand. Camille did, passed away, and I went traveling. So like that, it takes that long. Yeah. And I guess that is exactly the thing, what you're talking about. Like, I'm just thinking of an example in my own head. Yeah. Buckle up. If people are watching and they're looking, they got something they want to do, just start working at it.
Yeah, it's like you just got to start something. And listen, the very first thing I wanted to be was a breakdancer. Clearly that didn't work out.
No, I don't know.
Right? No, but you start off doing these things, right? So I tried breakdancing. That wasn't for me. I tried rapping. That wasn't for me. I tried being a graffiti artist. That wasn't for me. I tried DJing. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is my thing. Right? And then I just became really good at that. And then it was like, what's this thing? Making music. I was like, whoa. I started tinkering with that. And even with that, I started to make hip hop. And then it was like, nah, that's not hip hop. Okay. I started to try and make another kind of music. Well, nah, that's not very good. And all of a sudden, it was this other thing.
A new genre.
Pops
up.
Right? It's like, what is this thing? There's no names for it. No one quite knows what they're doing. But, a few of us are obsessed about chopping these breaks up and putting these things together. And all of a sudden, the tempo speeding up. It's 100. It's 110, it's 120, it's 130, it's 140, it's 150. It's like, ooh, what's this? And so even in that, where, I'm really excited and passionate. You're still experimenting. I still haven't found the right groove. And we go from 120 to 150 to 170 now. That was where the groove is. And so even in that thing where I'm really good, I still haven't found it. So there's still levels of experimentation. There's still levels of like trying to find the thing in amongst it. I'm in the right ballpark, but now I need to like hone it in even more. And so sometimes that's what it's about. You can go and find the thing, you can be in the right community. You just don't know what it is yet. And so I was in the music community, Bristol music community, from the age of 19 when we did Fresh 4. We were doing the warehouse parties. And we were playing the best music that we could get, American music, in some independent UK music, chopping stuff up, scratching and stuff. But that was the sort of thing that said, look, I love music. Now let's zero in on it and figure out how we can create our own thing. Because what we were doing at that point is we were just emulating what was going on in America. And we were using the American voice to kind of tell our story in a way.
You definitely created a sound. I mean, I can only say I'm talking for flipping Bristol here. I know that Bristol has been proud of a sound. Yeah. And I've been a lot of places around the world. We are proud that there was a sound created. And you know as well as I do, you were a key part of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And that's what I'm saying. It's like it took that 10 years to really fine tune that sound. Like we had to own the experience and we had to really sort of, de-Americanize ourselves from, music to really find out what is the British sound, what is the Bristol sound, how do we do things different here that is still, having a voice? How do we represent our ends? How do we represent our community? What are we rebelling against? And all of that came together and as what we know is jungle music today. And so that's our version of hip hop.
Amazing. Right. What role did music scenes like punk, rave, hip hop, etc. play in giving young people a voice?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways you contribute to society. You get let in the front door or you break in the back door, right? And they didn't want to let us in. They didn't want our voices. They didn't want anything that didn't sound like them or look like them, right? And so you look at, jazz music and what those people were going through. You look at punk music, these are people who a lot of their families are the establishment, and these young people are growing up in the 60s and they're rejecting that. They're saying, this isn't right, there's something not right about it. And they're rejecting it. And they've created the complete opposite of it. They look differently, they sound differently, the music's heavy and fast.
Aren't they?
Yeah. It's just this real sort of aggressive, angry music that you, when you hear it, you immediately say, that's me. I identify with that voice, with the energy, with the aggression, with the assertiveness. And it's a way of saying, we're not like you. We're not going to listen to what you're telling us to do, especially when your only opportunities or your only way of wanting us to contribute is your way or no way. It's like, no, there's millions of ways. And so these are blueprints. When I grew up, I was big into like pop music, electro, and a bit of ska music. It wasn't until really I saw like the Specials and Two Tones that I mean, that's probably like 14, 13 when I got into the Specials, but that was like huge for me. It was like I could see these guys, black and white people, this ska thing, it had energy, do you know what I mean? It had this sort of rebellious spirit, and it was like, I could get it. You know what I mean? I could see what they were talking about, the shit that was going on in Coventry, but it was going on in all the neighborhoods in England, and it was like they were really speaking to us. And then bam, hip hop drops, and it's like like this is even harder, do you know what I mean? And this rapping and this breakdancing, and then England erupts with their own culture, the rave culture, and how we're raving in fields, and it's all this anti-establishment. But the thread that's going through all is this DIY culture.
So does that exist? Because when you were saying all this, I was thinking, getting involved in a rave scene is quite young myself, and it was obvious people involved in it weren't necessarily doing it for the money. It was a culture. Yeah. It was a thing. People were doing it. Good times. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It was your life.
Yeah.
So there was that going on. But I guess like with what you're talking about now, what's the equivalent now? I don't like this anti-establishment that is what young people really want to do, and I don't know.
I think the narrative has been hijacked very cleverly with socials. I think a lot of attention is directed into status, and I think that there are youth movements, but because of the noise, they don't get attention as much as they do or they did. But there are movements out there that are, doing things. You just have to seek them out. I think that it's a challenge to make enough noise so you can rise above the other noise.
Yeah.
And it's confusing because of the way that messaging is done now. I do think there is a rebellious spirit. Grime, dubstep, still rebellious. A youth group, are still driving
that rave
for something.
scene was widespread though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how is something like that? And you're right. Like, the digital world has got to play a role in how that isn't so widespread, or maybe that is it. Your best friend is your phone. It's like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, it's very interesting, and depending how deep you want to go down a rabbit hole, you can really see how technology and the manipulation of information
or health, wellness, like mental health, like you.
Yeah, I mean, it's subtle. I just think that I do believe that people who want to find it will find it, and they've got their silos and they're figuring out what they want to do and how they can fight back, as it were. I do think we're in a huge collapse. The old structures are collapsing, and I think when you corner a wild animal, that's when it's worst. And I just think we're in that period of where the empire is falling and it's doing everything it can just to survive, and it's just wild. It's wild. I think the best thing people can do right now is just be informed and not listen to just one version of the truth. You have to
seek out your own truth.
You have to seek out your own truth, and you have to be discerning and understand how to have critical analysis. And I think these are the new level of skills that are going to be required for the next 10 to 15 years. People have to really understand how to break down information and really use it to, support their communities. And I think that's what's going to be important. We'll go back to these smaller communities where people can use technologies, but for the betterment of the community. I really think that, AI is the new buzzword, but you've got to look at it from a long enough timeline, in the same way we looked at the internet. And when the internet first happened, no one really understood what it was. It was hype. It was, a lot of noise. People who understood it, benefited from it, jumped on it quicker. Now we look at it, we couldn't live without it. Right?
And that's just a start.
Right? And it feels like, we've always had the internet. And so there are people who figured out how to use the internet for good and also for bad. But on a general level, it has kind of created opportunity on a global level for us to communicate, for us to do commerce, for us to educate ourselves. It's driven down the price of education to it's almost free. If you want to learn anything now, you can, right? You can. There is no excuses. And so now is the time to really educate yourself and educate your communities and start building something from the ground up. That is more doable than it ever has been.
Yeah. And it saves a whole lot of time, doesn't it? I mean, it's the argument about, is the critical thinking skills and all those kind of things, the creativity, is that going to wane off with human nature? Because you can find so much stuff and create so many things. Like that thing there, I created that on ChatGPT. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like all those kind of things. So is it going to impact on some of those kind of creative skills? I don't know what the answer is, but I guess if you can harness it in a positive way.
Yeah, I think we're just in the hype phase still. I think it's going to be a long time before it actually levels out and we find really good use cases for it. The genie is out of the bottle. right? And it is a big, exciting, gold-plated genie that's got everybody looking up at it. And we're just totally in awe of it at the moment because it's doing some amazing things. And the promise of it as well is that it's going to do some amazing things. I think we have to sort of figure out what our relationship to it is and try and use it as an ally and as a partner and not as a replacement. And I think at the moment there's this fear and it's driving people thinking it's going to be a replacement. I'm seeing a lot of partnerships and collaboration at the moment. I've really seen a lot more talk about how AI is about a collaboration, a partnership, a tool to help. And I think that the people, so I think the top 1% of creative, of smart, of really great people, it's not going to affect their talent. Because if I want to see a Banksy piece, AI isn't really going to be able to tell me or copy. It will copy what Banksy's done and maybe predict a couple of ideas what he may do. But when I see the next Banksy when I'm walking through wherever I'm walking through, that's going to make me stop and look at that, right? AI isn't necessarily going to replace that, right? And so if you're really good and exceptional at what you do, people are always going to come to you.
Well, try and recreate it, won't it? But it won't be able to. That's the point, because you're above
right?
level.
So what that tells me is that if you don't want to get replaced by AI, guess what you're going to have to do?
Put the 10 years in.
Put the work in, right?
I tell you what, if this ain't going to be the teaser, Dougie, put it in.
Right? And I think that's what the difference is. The people that will use it to try and circumvent doing the long work, they'll get so far. And you'll start to see, I mean, I already now, when I see certain videos, when people are talking, I already know that they've been using ChatGPT because of the language patterns. And it's like, it's not that big a deal what you're saying. You could still, maybe use it as a tool to get ideas, but then put your own spin on it. But it's like almost like they're lazy because they're just trying to get more views, right? That will eventually, get to a point where it will be so obvious that it's like we had the conversation about digital and analog. It just feels different, right? And we will want to go back to something that feels more analog.
And then we'll be reminiscing of, the differences. I mean, even I know the stuff that we do, like the soft skills, AI is not going to recreate the soft skills in a way that has that, that feeling and that impact on people emotionally, socially. It won't be able to do that. No. So there's certain things that, people just got to keep their eyes on the prize and know that the time to put in.
Well, there's different things that we can definitely relate this to. When recorded music came out, the sheet musicians was huge. People made money by doing live shows and selling sheet music. They said that would die. It didn't. It just transformed into something else, right? When there's another one I'm trying to think of as well. When technology changes, right, it doesn't kill the existing thing.
It's an iteration, isn't it?
It just changes it. But the people that use it, like for instance, I saw an advert for Hans Zimmer and this huge show, right? And it's like 100, I don't know, it's like a huge orchestra. When I saw it, immediately I said, I want to go and see that. I didn't go online and try and recreate it with, right? I just saw, because that's the experience I want. I want to go and see a live performance. I want to sit in that crowd.
Those performances become more special, won't they? Because
Exactly.
you'll have so much saturation of AI, whatever.
Right. So it doesn't necessarily take over. It will take over for a certain demographics or a certain group, but you will still have people who will want to go and see a live performance. You'll still have people who will prefer to have a physical record or a physical, picture. So I think what we're seeing is, of course it's exciting, of course it's new, of course it's getting our attention. But like I said, we're still in the hype phase. So, maybe a year, 2 years, it starts to mellow and find its place where it's going to be. And, we'll have a different conversation about it then.
It'd be interesting though, wouldn't it? It'd be interesting to see where this goes. What barriers did working class people face getting into music industry or creative arts 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Are those barriers still there?
Well, the barriers were affordability. There were no music colleges. I mean, if they were very expensive, very prohibitive. You just couldn't afford to go there. And so...
Well, I guess there wasn't electronic music that was part of those colleges at that point anyway, was it?
No, of course not, no.
Yeah.
There wasn't... Electronic music was, the thing that, we were a part of back then. I think as well, the other problem was because it was so expensive that you didn't know anybody who could afford a studio. And if they could, the majority of people couldn't use the stuff anyway. There's only I always say the story that back then there was only 2 people in Bristol who had studios and only one of them knew how to work it.
Who was that? I don't know.
But it's just that whole thing, because it was so new, you had people who could afford it, but they just didn't have I think they may have bought equipment, but didn't have that sort of impetus to really sit down and learn it.
Didn't have the time to learn it beforehand.
No. And then you had another group of people who couldn't afford it, but when they did get it, they absolutely lived it and breathed it. So when we came through, of course, we couldn't afford to buy equipment. The first set of turntables that we bought, we had to club together and buy one as a crew, and then wait another couple of 6 to 8 months, buy the mixer, and then another, so it took us a year to get the whole setup, but we finally managed to do it. But that was like a group kind of effort. So that's what you were dealing with the barriers of entry. First of all, it was, you couldn't afford it. And then the next thing was you had to learn how to use it once you got it. And there weren't many people that could teach you how to do it. And so there wasn't anything online because that wasn't the case. Manuals were like trying to learn another language.
Trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very hard work.
To the cause.
Yeah, and then it was like you ended up sitting in rooms with 10 other guys watching a monitor, having someone show you how to use it. And so it's just a very timely thing of like having to know the right people. And back then as well, it was like you had to know the right people and you had to be invited in, because it was such a sort of small community that whoever had put that initial investment in, they weren't just going to let any Tom, Dick and Harry. You had to be like obsessive. You had to have done the work. And because of the way the community was structured, you couldn't come out and say you were a DJ and then be invited to play at, the Feckler or, the Moon Club or wherever. It's like you had to put in the work. You had to have your chops, because when someone comes to see you, like if you didn't know how to do basic mixing or scratching or hosting, like no one's going to stay and watch you for an hour, or you wouldn't get booked to play in a club. And so there were levels you had to go through, but once you progressed through those levels, you were on the scene, you were known. And then if I saw you and I knew you were dabbling in music, you know me, you know that I'm serious because I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and there's a potential that I'm going to do something with the information that you're sharing with me. And so that's kind of how it sort of spread around. You met somebody, fortunately, after my brother Flynn worked with Smith and Mighty, that kind of gave us an in. And, Rob and Ray kindly let me and Di and Sub hang out with them for years. We'd be in the studio, standing there watching them, and to be honest, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't have that opportunity.
Is that still a similar kind of journey you think now for like young people, young adults that are going through their version of whatever you're talking about there? Do you feel like that probably is still part of the same roadmap, or is it just a different world?
I think there's two now. I think that is a progression route. If you do get in with the right people, if you do know people who've got studios now, just like had Dexborough years ago, everyone's got one. But also as well, parallel with that are the music colleges that have now sprouted up, the DBSs, the BIMs, the Access to Music,
What's the deal with all that? Is that actually would you say that those kind of spaces and places are kind of top level kind of, or is it a money spinning? Because I've seen these things pop up and I remember thinking, like anyone I've ever known that's done any good in music is basically what you're saying. They've spent forever and a day being a hermit and they've learned from others. Is that an avenue, or is that like an avenue? Well, I feel like it's a money spinner, but I'm probably out of order by saying.
I mean, it does. They do charge for their services, and you can go and get a diploma there. But you got to think about. There's a kid growing up now in, I don't know, some rural area where they are seeing kids like them making beats, and they don't have any access. And the nearest major city to them has a college. So they don't know anybody who they can go and sit in a room with and just ask them 100 questions a day. but they can go to these colleges and be in a community of people, and maybe that's how they start their journey. And I know a lot of young people who've gone to these music colleges and they've got their start. And it's different from ours.
Well, if it works, it works.
Yeah,
if
it's
it works.
different from ours, but it's an opportunity for them to do it. It's just different.
But there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there? I mean, I guess if you've seen it work, it works. Like it just works on a different way.
It's just a different way, yeah. And so it's just finding opportunity in a way that you can get in and figure out if that's for you.
Okay, I'll take that back. No, I don't. Do you think there is a lack of working class voices in leadership roles across music, media, creative industries, like entertainment in general?
Yeah, definitely.
And why? Why?
Well, you have to go to uni. You have to go to uni to get qualifications, and that's how you get, the job that requires qualifications. And for some reason, that is seen, the regurgitation of information is seen as more valuable than 10 to 20 years of embedded knowledge.
Why do that? I mean, that is interesting, because why, based on everything we've already said already, why do you think that people that maybe own big production entertainment companies or whatever it might be wouldn't value having so much skin in the game that they've created movements, whatever it is, like specific things over God knows how many years, so you've got all these different skills and experiences over 3 years doing a degree, and then and then work experience as well. I'm not saying there's one or both, but it's definitely.
I mean, it's very interesting. I had this conversation yesterday, and so I'm writing a book at the moment, and it's really about how jungle became, what it is. But to understand how jungle got to where it is, you have to understand the environment that it came from. And if once you understand the environment that it came from, you start to see, there's a certain type of thinking, there's a certain type of mindset, there's a certain type of DIY mentality, there's a certain type of culture that it grew out of. That has not translated to the industry that now makes billions off of the, right? Does that question what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And so my argument is, how is that possible that all these people, and it's not, I'm generalizing, but it's quite accurate, that all these people that contributed to the scene, right? And there's another culture that's just seen what these people have done and then figured out how to commercialize it and monetize it, and then try and tell people that this is what it is without actually involving these people in the process. It's like, that's a bit of a mismatch. And so because this now industry has become so big and so vast, they've got other ways now of I'm not saying being incentivized, but the way that they've now monetized their systems are through the education system. And now the argument would be, well, you don't have any qualifications. Well, I don't need any qualifications.
It wouldn't have been here if I wasn't doing what I was doing.
I've already proven the hypothesis.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know what I'm saying? I've already proven that what I do has worked. I've been doing it for 30 years. Look at the people that I've done it with. Look at the people that influenced me. They've already done it. Like they've
learned from that.
Yeah, they've already built the culture. Do you know what I'm saying? It's tooled all around the world.
So is it control? Is it the class situation with control and then monetizing it and feeling more comfortable within, like everyone feels more comfortable within certain surroundings, I would guess. Is there some of that? Because there's good and bad in every class and every people. We know that. This is not a digging out of different classes. But if movements have come from certain parts of the world, certain areas, certain places within poverty, whatever it might be, so their thought process is different.
Yeah.
Then that has worked, but that hasn't necessarily worked to bring money to other people from other backgrounds. Is that the problem?
I'm not sure what it is, but what you've got, we're in a state now where the work to get these systems off the ground and these cultures off the ground has been done by people who are not educated, who, and I mean they're not educated, they just didn't get on an education. They probably didn't enjoy that type of system. They come from council estates.
It wasn't fit for purpose, for starters.
Right. And so they've had to figure out how to survive. Right. So if you think about jungle music, jungle's a complete rebellion against the system. Look at trip hop. Trip hop's dubstep, grime, all these UK musics that start off with grassroots kids who are rejecting the system, who were told that you can't be a racing car driver, right? Who go back to these rooms and say, well, you know what? You're not going to let me in. I'm going to create
that you can. Suddenly it's like, well, yeah, I can.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you know what? We're just going to do our own thing. So they do their own thing, and then somebody says, oh, that looks interesting. I bet I could make a bit of money out of that. And they understand how to do business. They understand how to do commerce. They understand how to do,
making the connections with other people. They've got those networks.
Yeah.
They got that.
And then they say, okay, let's take that and let's put it into this arena. And then it goes, and because they understand, how to build businesses. And so this isn't a criticism against people who know how to build businesses. They're opportunists.
It's society, isn't it?
Yes, they're opportunists. They know how to do that. One of the things why I do a lot of these talks and I do lots of workshops and I set up my coaching consultancy was because that was the gap. We were great at doing business. We were great at building culture. We were great at being innovative. We were great at noticing the gaps, but we weren't that great at monetizing. We weren't that great at building businesses.
I feel your pain.
Right? And that was a huge thing because I saw it time and time and time again. I saw it happening. And my thing was, if I'm going to contribute to this, one of the things is I'm going to show people how we think, how we understand the DIY mindset and how we create, income streams from that. And so that's been my challenge, is trying to just give back and help people think differently because of that. But there is that disconnect. So you do have people who understand and who can monetize opportunities. And then you do have a group of people that, who understand how to build something from nothing, how to continually create, So these terms that I'm using, we're not thinking like that when we're in these council estates.
It's literally it's fun, enjoyment. This is my drive, my passion. I'm going for it. We're having fun. It's a bit edgy, whatever.
And that's what it is. And that's the
excitement.
That's what it is. But then you get to a point, and this is what happens. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to all of my friends. So we got to a point where it's like, are we going to do this thing for real? Right? Or is it just we're going to get proper jobs and this is going to be the thing on the side? That is the crunch, when the rubber meets the road. Majority of people cannot see how to make a living out of it. And they go, you know what? It was fun knowing you, but I'm going to go and, get a real job and start a family. And for us, a few of us, we saw that inflection point. And I remember really well, I was talking to someone the other day about this. I remember really well. I was making more money for a DJ gig. I was only making like 300 quid for a DJ gig, but that was more than what I was getting for the Sign on the Doll. I was getting like £78 a fortnight. And I got to this point and I can remember Full Cycle was starting to work. We were starting to get more and more bookings. And it was like, I remember I had to sign off because I was making more money doing gigs than I was signing on.
I bet that was a fault. It was like,
listen, it was a consideration. It was a consideration.
Yeah.
I was getting housing benefits and I was signing on. Yeah. And all of a sudden I was looking at these two things.
That's a leap of faith.
It was deep. And I remember thinking, you're going to cut the cord, man. And we had to do it. And I remember just sitting there talking to us, we got to do it. We've come this far. I could see at least to the end of the year that we were going to be okay. There was bookings coming in, there was work, we were making records. I understood my craft, but it was this kind of ooh, is it going to, And I see that a lot of people now, they're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work for me. And they see a lot of press online. They see a lot of people who haven't made it and who are giving everybody the warnings. And it's just this mindset shift that needs to happen. And then
believing that you're because obviously you were doing a certain thing, but I'm just thinking of young people I've supported and grown up myself or whatever. It's having those role models that you see around you that have been there before, done something before, and actually believing that this is possible. What you were doing is, without blowing smoke at your ass, you were pioneering in that sense. And that's the problem that most working class people got. It's like, who am I seeing doing that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't. You don't see enough of it.
Or they're not. I mean, this is where I think when I spoke to you originally, the GAP program, it's the same reason for that, for having people that go through a process that get into employment or education from working class backgrounds, that suddenly there might be the people that employ someone tomorrow. Because they walked in those shoes.
Yeah.
And if that door ain't ever open, the opportunity is never going to come down to the rest of us, is it?
Yeah. No, it's true. You have to be around. Listen, in a way, right, we were delusional. And I say that.
But you had to be.
But I say that because the delusion has to come in because you were told you live in the ordinary world. Like, that's what you're told. In school, remember what they say, get real.
Yeah.
Right? You can't make a living off it.
They said get out,
right?
Quite a lot.
Right? But even my parents, they are telling me to go and get a real job, because you need to be safe. So this is all going through your psychology. Yeah. And remember, there is no guarantee that this DJ thing is going to work. None whatsoever. So there is this sort of delusion that has to take place. But it's almost like the delusion has to wake you up from the dream you're already in. We're walking around like zombies thinking that 9 to 5 is the only reality. Go and get a job. That's the only reality. So we are programmed, we're pre-programmed, out of the womb to think that this is the only thing that's possible. So you have to break that with a even more delusion, right?
The challenge is as well, is if you're coming from a background that is, there's more poverty and there's less opportunity, then your mindset is even more kind of like, held in, isn't it? Yeah. So like to kind of break through that, you're going through a few more layers.
Yeah.
Not saying it's easy for anyone, by the way, but
and this is why that initial thing of moving out of Norwest to move to St. Paul's was really important. I had to be around the people that were doing the thing I was doing. I had to know it was possible for me. And that's what broke the chains, because when I moved there, majority of people in St. Paul's were creators, were musos, were DIYers. They just had this different way of thinking, and I had it to a degree because, my dad was an engineer, my brother was a photographer, my mum was a singer. So I had this sort of DIY mentality. Just didn't know how to monetize it, didn't know it was a thing. But when I moved to St. Paul's, I started to see a few people that were like photographers that were making a living, that were like artists who were selling their work. And it's like, ooh, this is possible then. What are these guys doing differently? And it's just being in that environment around these people talking, it just rubs off on you. You start to see the cracks in the 9 to 5 world appear. And it was like, don't get me wrong. I tried to get a job. I tried to work. I know so many times. And it just became this point where I just can't do this anymore. I have to put all of my thing into this music, because that's the only thing that keeps me up late at night and gets me up early in the morning. And I'm starting to see an opening. And so when that day came and I had to sign off, it was like, it was a thing, but I knew deep down what I was going to do.
It was the only way.
It was the only way.
Yeah.
It was the only way. And I think that is where this obsession and the delusion, they meet, because once you're so deep down a rabbit hole, and if you can just convince yourself, you know what, all I need to do is keep doing what I'm doing because it is working. Mm. And in the beginning, it's like a couple of raindrops. People can't see how that can turn into a waterfall or the Niagara Falls. It's like, but Niagara Falls doesn't start like that. You go upstream. It's this tiny little stream, right? And I think that is what people kind of don't get to be able to see. And that's what socials and the internet does. And this is what boredom does. Boredom makes a 14-year-old kid sit in his room by himself dreaming that he's in New York being a DJ.
Now you could go, an avatar of me, I'm there. Woo! I don't know. It's a crazy world we're living in, isn't it? The other things as well, another question. So, what policies and practices or cultural shifts would you genuinely open the door for working class talent today? Is it goes higher maybe than what we've been talking about there? Is there real kind of like political change or policies that could really change this, or is it?
I think that sometimes when you involve politics or the establishment, it's bureaucracy. And I think that just slows it down. Creativity, art, is about you need something to push against. You need resistance. You need resistance, right?
Yeah.
A diamond is created because it's compressed for long periods of time. Good stress creates the finest grapes, and we call that champagne, right? And so there is something to do with resistance that needs to be applied so that we could get the best out of each other. Resistance training, weight training, pushing more weights makes the body, when you do running, my son's into football. We took him training the other day and they put these elastic bands around his waist and run. And he has to run against the thing and then they let it go and he flies out the gate. And it's like, it's like resistance creates tension. Tension creates, stress and anxiety in the mind. But that in a good way, it helps you break out of that normal kind of repetitive, subdued mindset. Yeah. And so the value in groups of people coming together, like for me.
But can that not, and I'm playing devil's advocate because I agree with you, but like, can that not happen then within policymakers, within people like that are coming together with the right values and the right vision? But is it because they haven't had the same resistance, everything we spoke about from those early days?
Listen,
they don't have enough skin in the game.
If Jungle was made in a record company, it wouldn't be what it is. It would have lasted 6 weeks, and
you can tell when it is made in a record company.
Right?
Oh, shit.
Right. But that's what you see. Whenever you see culture that's organized and that's kind of homogenized and not being allowed to just grow and become what it is, it doesn't last. It doesn't work. There's something about the organic nature of failure, of struggle.
Can I put this in? And I'm not. And I sent this on the text thing when I asked you to come along, and because I seen you at Lakota the other week. And I don't go out that much, more got a family and all the rest of it, same old story as a lot of people. And I remember, I'd seen you again, and I remember thinking, there's just something different about what you do, that darkness, that rawness, that kind of drive. There's something within that. It's not like a lot of DJs are there kind of getting you to be euphoric and it's all about the high. But then there's something, and this is basically what kind of, I feel like what you're saying, like you can tangibly feel it and see it when someone has probably been through a different path, how that comes out with what they produced, how they mix it, how they match it. Yeah. So I'm only putting it like visually, it's a thing. It's still a thing now. It's freaking obvious.
Well, do
you know what I mean?
That initially comes through, and it's deeper into the subconscious, and it has more meaning and purpose. And so while it's sometimes having policy after, I think, is a good job to organize it and to give it structure and some sort of legitimacy. In the beginning, sometimes it stifles that. And you need to, innovation needs to solve a problem, but it needs to be dealt with at the level that it needs to be dealt with in a way that people can observe it and see it as it's coming through. Whenever you try and, circumvent certain things, it doesn't work. It's like it just sort of falls apart. It doesn't have any deeper roots or deeper meaning. So while I think sometimes that's good, me personally, I think, when you think about like that German 1940s art house, Bauhaus movement. If you think about how that lasted and the influence that had on the world, we're still feeling the impact today. And it stopped, after the Second World War or something. But there was a group of people that had that sort of creative, innovative, anarchistic mindset that wanted to put together different disciplines and just be allowed to create. And they came up with some amazing things. Now, if they had these types of restrictions on it, would it have been the same? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Could we replicate something like that today and have the same impact? I don't know. But if we try, we'll create something. And if we use the blueprints of, creativity, of art, of people being coming together, using different disciplines, using different tools, using different ideas, We just need to put them together and see what happens in the environment where we know creativity and innovation can flourish. I think sometimes if we have expectations of what that's going to be, that may kill it. Like I said, when I started making music, I didn't know it was jungle. I tried lots of different things, and eventually I stumbled on jungle.
We know the process, but knowing the process at the beginning is the thing that impacts the creative juices, and which is that starting process.
Yeah, we want to be able to think really out there. Like the next shift is going to be really interesting. I don't know what it is. I don't know anybody who does know what it is, but I'm in the trenches with everybody. And I'm just as curious to find out where we're going, whether it's going to be in movies, whether it's going to be in sound, whether it's going to be in tech. I don't know, but it's fun right now. So I'm involved in that grassroots level, trying to just enjoy the process, enjoy how things are coming together. And I'm seeing something happen. I couldn't tell you exactly what, but for me, it feels exactly like how we started Jungle, how the Bristol thing happened. And it's fun and it's exciting. And I'm seeing people who are passionate and you know, who are just like diving in and trying to make something happen. What it's going to be and where it's going to go, I don't know. But I think that is what it's about.
Yeah, no. I agree. We're just over an hour. How's your energy? You good?
I'm ready to go, man.
You're good? Okay. Yeah. Well, what does getting paid in the music industry look like today versus the 80s and 90s? Is it easier or harder to build a career? Like, I'll just a quick answer with this one, just because it probably touches on what you said.
Yeah, if you can understand how to market what you do and what that monetization looks like, you can definitely be able to create a great living. It's totally different from how it was when I came through, but there are ways that young people, even older people, can make a living. It's slightly more challenging, but it can be done. But there is a transition that needs to take place, but there also is a mental reframe that needs to take place as well. That is a bit challenging for sort of slightly older people that come through the old system. The new system is, you know, online, it is digital, but I think if you can think differently and you think outside the box, you'll be able to figure it out, because there are opportunities out there. I think as well that the older people do slightly have an advantage, because there are things
they've got different tools, and we can always learn new ones.
Exactly.
But you can't learn an experience that's happened however long ago.
Exactly.
Well, that should be part of your superpower, shouldn't it?
Exactly.
If you're willing to try something new.
If you're willing to do the work.
Which not everyone is, as we know. Yeah. I think this leads into the next question pretty well. I mean, should we rethink how creative work is valued in society?
Absolutely.
And what would it look like?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a really, really interesting question. I think that the tech companies have really hijacked the creative culture at the moment, and they've set the price to it, or at least in the music business anyway. I see them coming into the film business and having the same effect. I think lots of film people are starting to feel the pinch where AI is taking over, making videos and imagery and stuff like that. That is a real challenge. You have Spotify and a lot of the streaming services have put their price what's actually happened is that there's a shift gone from art to content. So majority of people call what we used to call art, they call it content. And when you call it content, you're devaluing it.
Yeah, it might just monetize it, doesn't it? It's just like that is what's going to make you, the content that make you money. It's not like that's that expression of whatever.
And so the terminology denotes the outcome. And so art now is seen to be like this highbrow, almost unattainable thing, where that needs to be more the focus. And we need to get back to the craft, and we need to create an outlet for what we do that's based on us doing it. And so what it looks like, it's Spotify has convinced everybody, and streaming services, not just Spotify, but they've convinced everybody that this is the way that you do music. That is a way you do music, and it's certainly not an entry-level thing for musicians to deal with, for a number of reasons. The reason why creatives should do it themselves until they can't, because they need to learn the business. Because again, we've fast tracked it. Just put your stuff on these streaming services and you're going to make X amount. We've seen the numbers. They're abysmal. No one's making an income or could replace their income by putting out
So
music.
is it a number of different things that make up the pie that mean that career can actually sustain you and earn you a decent couple of quid?
Where before we were marketing to sell records. Now you sell records to market your career.
Okay. And your career makes the
your
money?
career is the vehicle. So you're getting paid for DJing, you're getting paid for sponsorships, you're getting paid for talks and workshops, you're getting paid for making products, services. It's a music.
You become a brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. What does good leadership in a creative field look like to you? How has that changed over the last 20 years?
I think that smaller communities were focused on what they were doing and they didn't understand the impact of what they were doing on a global scale. So what we were trying to do with jungle music in the beginning certainly was have an impact on our community first and foremost. Like, we wanted to be the people who were known for jungle in Bristol. We came from Bristol and we recognized that there was nobody doing anything like what we were doing, and we were going to be the ambassadors and the people that were going to be recognized for that. And that kind of proliferated throughout Bristol and then throughout the Southwest, and then becomes this sort of huge sort of community, jungleists, right? We go around the world, and for us, it's having this idea that we are the leaders of this culture. We are the ones that people come to see. So we have this way of upholding these standards. A lot of my standards came from, hip hop, and in a sense, being a b-boy. Being a b-boy was about having self-respect, self-reliance, being innovative, being creative, being original, being authentic. And that was what we stood for. And so for us back then, being a leader was to embody these values, that when people saw what we were doing, that would be the thing that they would see and be influenced by and want to build for themselves. That's still the drive today for me and for a few of the people that I'm sort of hanging out and friends with, but we're doing it in a different way now. And so the leadership today really is about teaching self-reliance, but being a model of it yourself. So there's no finger pointing or, hierarchy. It's just like, I'm now,
been in control of your own destiny, but I guess with that support of mentors, coaches, people that are,
But we're leading by example, right?
Yeah.
We know growing up that we didn't want establishment telling us what to do, and so we built our own systems. And so this is what leadership is today. It's self-reliance. How do you build your own systems? How do you create autonomy? How do you author your own story? And then we're not like I said, we're not forcing anything on anybody, but we're trying to be the examples. We're trying to be leaders of ourselves first and foremost, so that we can show people what's possible. We've had 30 years of Bristol culture taking over the world, of people seeing what we've been able to do in this small footprint of a city go global.
You must I can't. You must at some points just sit back. You must have had points where you just sat back at different times and just thought, how did this happen? Like, not how did this happen, because I know that it was like, you've done loads of different things and there's loads of other people on that journey, but there must be like moments where you just like...
There isn't, to be honest.
There isn't?
No. I mean,
wow,
it's just moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm with a group of people, we are hungry. There is no loss of desire in what we want to achieve. There's so much more to achieve. I want to build the UK version of the Bauhaus in Bristol. Like, that's my goal.
I did, and like, tell me to piss off if you don't want to. I did read something, and it was only because the other day I was seeing something that popped up or whatever, and it was like you got to a certain point where you're just like, this isn't working for me. Like there's different bits of it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm guessing that's probably where you went on to. I'll ask you a question in a minute about the other stuff you've done, which is, super interesting as well. But what happened there? Like, if you again talk about what you want to talk about, but.
Yeah, I mean, I got to a point where I got into music from 14 years old watching Wildstar. It was a roller coaster up until maybe about 38, 39. It was just non-stop. I grew up in sort of the Bristol sort of limelight, as it were. We did the Fresh Four, we did the Full Cycle, and it was like relentless touring. We were all over the world. We won the American Music Prize. We were signed to Def Jam in America, Talking Loud in England. We were just touring relentlessly, and eventually we just burnt out. I'd come up with all of my friends, and we spent 14 years together. We created a record label, we created a publishing label, we created 2 other brands. And it was just this relentless drive. We didn't have a support system around us that could nurture us from a health perspective. We didn't have, business coaches that could tell us how to deal with succession, like what to do next, what to focus on, what to build. And so we were learning everything as we were going along. And it just got to a point where it was just too much. It was like I'd completely lost Kirk, Kay, and I'd become this DJ Krust guy that didn't have a girlfriend, couldn't hold down a relationship, was never really at home, was missing family, dinners and parties. And, I was just like the guy that would like call in on dates or pop in, and just always busy, always in the studio. And that just took its toll, and eventually I remember standing in Level one night when we were doing a Full Cycle night, and I'm just standing up against the wall, packed. I think we just got back from America, and I'm standing there, I'm thinking, is this it? Is this what I've done all this for? This is what I've missed, all the families, everything. And that was it, really. From 6 weeks, 7 weeks after that, maybe 6 months, I left. I just had enough. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that was tough. And that decision was coming really from about 2 years before. I knew there was something wrong. There was like this sort of uneasiness, there was tension in the group, but I was just unhappy, and I was denying it. I wasn't listening. I couldn't admit to myself that earning money was wrong, living in the house that I was living in, driving a car, being paid what I just couldn't. I couldn't admit to myself that I'd made a mistake. I was like, I'd done it all right.
It's probably because what you were dreaming of, and then I guess you get to a point in that changes for different reasons.
Yeah, the dream has to. I was just about to go get into my 40s, and life was supposed to change. I was just holding on, and it was like I was seeing it, and I was like, I couldn't imagine not being with my guys. I couldn't imagine not being with Full Cycle. Not that I was going to leave. That wasn't like on the cards, but it was like the thing that kept coming back. If I'm not DJ Krust, who am I? Like that was the thing, and I couldn't. Like
your identity was so wrapped into that,
everything.
Did you couldn't see another way?
I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't see it, And because I'd been that guy since I was 14, I didn't know who Kirk was. I didn't know who Kay was, and so it was Kirk up until then, and it was like, and then I took the time out. I just stopped, and that was really when it began. I just had to stop. Had to rebuild myself. I started, meditating, drinking water, and no partying, no going out. And I lived as a hermit for about the first 3 years. And I just started reading books about consciousness, spirituality, tried to understand what was going on, like what had happened, like why wasn't I happy? I was miserable. For years I was miserable. I used to keep a drawer full of money, and when I started it was fun. And after a while, it was like, that, it's like people tell you you're supposed to be happy, you got money, you got a car, and it's like nothing was working. Yeah. And I was just getting more and more miserable. But slowly I was starting to something was starting to grow, a seed was starting to grow, and I needed the time. I wasn't giving myself time to really think and let the dream unfold by itself.
These are the creativity and ideas and things, they only percolate, don't they, when you give yourself the sound is quiet.
You need to.
And it's just like I can only imagine like that period of your life there probably wasn't much quietness.
There was
Do you know what I mean?
there was no downtime. Because you're on tour or you're DJing, and everywhere you go, you have to be, in mode. You have to be on brand, and that takes its toll. And you're performing all the time. And the DJing was great. I loved it, and I loved when we did the Represent shows. I loved all of that. It was just that was only 1 hour of the day, right? So all the rest of it's the preparation for that, and so. When it died down, I started to be able to think, I would just sit at home and meditate, and slowly these seeds were starting to grow. I could start to hear myself again. And, after about 2 years, I started to sort of come back to life, and I started to have creative ideas again. I started to want to make, at least tinker with creativity. And then I had this idea. I remember sitting in my house just thinking, people kept asking you how you became a DJ. Like, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. Like, and then people kept asking you, how did you become a producer? How did you make music? How did you do that? I was like, I don't know. And that was it. That became the journey. So I was thinking, how did you do that? So I started to sort of write down what we did, started to look back at all the steps that we took. And after about 3 or 4 months, I kind of created this kind of blueprint of, how we did it. But at the same time, because I was reading lots of self-help books, lots of spiritual books, I kind of started to see the deeper meaning of what we were doing. And then I started to think, wow, it's actually quite interesting what we'd achieved, and how we kind of was thinking about it, and the meaning and and I said, okay, so, you do that and you know why you're doing it. Oh, okay, cool. So I started to people could see that there was something changed about me, and then I'd go out and people would say, oh, you changed, what's happened? But I just start telling them what was going on. I just noticed they'd be looking at me, got starry-eyed for about an hour and not talking. And I was like, maybe I've got something here.
You had something.
Yeah.
You have got something.
Yeah. So I started to just do that more, started to talk to people. And a friend of mine, Kerry O'Brien, she had this school, Urban Arts Academy in London. And she goes, come and, you're always talking about this stuff, Kay. Come and, talk to my young people about it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so that was the very first time I actually put together a workshop and did it with her young people, and that was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I got so much out of it, and I remember coming out and thinking, I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life, and that was just so fulfilling. And then that was it, really. I did for the next 7 years. It just kind of grew and grew and grew till I went from working with children right up to working with ad agencies and universities and colleges. I did all the access to music, the BIMs, the DBSs, some private music schools as well. And then I did a couple of universities, and then I did a couple of private, companies. And then I started to work with one-on-one clients, and as creatives, I started to really understand what was missing in their development. I studied NLP and hypnosis, so neuro-linguistic programming, so I could sort of communicate better and really delve down to the heart of the problem. And then I started to really help people deal with traumas that was stopping them from
blockages, isn't it?
Yeah, from stopping them from being really, really creative. And so that's kind of, and now that's turned into doing weekly coaching, some retreats I've been on where people have asked me to go, and building out courses and workshops. I'm in the process of writing a book, and just really figuring out what my journey is moving forward, how to use this technology, how to help people, and combining all of these things. And so my biggest thing now is just helping people find significance and meaning in what they do and trying to monetize it as well. So we're trying to work with the things both together rather than just, one thing. You can't, if you're too spiritual and too, innovative, you're missing out on being monetized. And if you go straight for the money, you could burn out and not enjoy it. So
we need to talk.
Yeah. So it's really trying to help people balance the two areas and get the best out of both worlds.
I mean, I'm glad, like, that wasn't a question. I just remembered something I read. I'm glad I asked that, because for me, like, I mean, without the pun, the whole full cycle thing, that feels like a beautiful full cycle. And obviously it ain't over yet. Like, there's other things that can come with technology and different ways of working. But I mean, maybe it's just the way you explained it, but it feels like, it's come to a great place.
Yeah.
As well, can you give me some examples of how, like, work-life balance and your wellness practices and mentoring have changed? Maybe like your life. Maybe you said a bit about your life, how it's changed your life, but maybe examples of how it's changed others, supported other people.
Yeah. So I don't have work-life balance. I'm still obsessed. So I've tried to have this work-life balance where, I've went to bed earlier, and for me, it just doesn't work. I'm just as obsessed now, if more, than I was when I was younger. And I think I'm more obsessed now because I actually know what I'm doing. Whereas before I was just obsessed and I was just trying to just do it all. Now I think where the balance comes with me is I actually understand the creative process and how to apply my time, what areas to apply my time, how to network effectively. So I have systems now which I teach people how to do that help you get to where you need to get to quicker. It's more of a focus type of structured way of thinking for a specific reason, for specific outcomes. So it's not random stuff we're teaching people. Right, what do you want to do? What's your next 5 years going to be about? What's your next 10 years going to be? Can you see it? Yes, no. If you can't see it, this is how we help you see it. If you can see it, this is how we structure it. Yeah, right. So we help you structure your time so you maximize it to get the result. We have this 90-day structure so that the first 90 days is so powerful and in depth so that you really understand how to reorganize your time so that the next 90 days you're in the pocket. So it's really much more like a military operation these days, with speed, but with focus. We teach you how to become a finely tuned, high performance machine that's focused on a certain outcome until you get it. Rather than before, we were it's random. It's just doing loads of things, hoping something sticks. It's very much fine tuned. And that's because of the way we've been able to understand how great businesses work, how great leadership looks like, how great people use technology, and how great people look after their bodies. So I don't necessarily have this work-life balance, but my diet has changed, right? I don't eat, the crap that I used to. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm training most days, I'm running, I have a very strict sort of, diet of information as well. So I don't consume loads of stuff. I only focus on the things that are helping me grow and helping me learn or helping me with other people. So that's down. I have certain things on my phone, certain alerts, certain things to focus on, certain things that help me stay focused, certain things I do to ritualize that, certain things I do to get me back on focus, because I do lose focus. I'm still the child that likes to do a million one things, but I have systems now to click me back into place when I know I'm going off course. I have 3 coaches that I work with, a month that, I'm reporting to so that they can help me fine tune what I do so I can get better quicker and faster. So the systems that I work within are really focused on how do I become the best version of myself in the shortest space of time so that I can do what I want to do. I want to do lots of things, right? I want to be a great father. I want to be a great partner. I want to be a great son. I want to be a great brother. But I also want to create a £100 million company. I want to create, the Bauhaus of the UK. I also want to make a film. I also want to, be a part of like the UK's next transformation, wherever that is. To do that though, you need to be hyper focused. And when I see the people that I admire, great CEOs, great leaders, they have structures. It's not hit and miss. They're very focused. They're very precise. By the time you see them talking about something, they've already practiced. They've already focused. They've already, fine-tuned what it is that they're doing, and they've got a track record to prove it. So what I'm doing is that I'm trying to become, CEO K. who understands the business landscape, but who also is a creative and an artist, and who can marry those two worlds together and create something that's, new, innovative and exciting that could potentially, bring the new wave of creatives on board and for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Perfect little segue. What advice would you give a 20-year-old working class artist started up now?
Find the thing that keeps you up all night and gets you up early in the morning. Once you find that, start, figuring out how to become the go-to person for that. Once you become the go-to person for that, then figure out what it is that you are the go-to person for. Are you going to create a product? You're going to create a service? Are you going to write? Are you going to teach? Are you going to be known as an innovator? Once you figure that out, then you can, create a product and then monetize it and build from there. But in the beginning, get your obsession down. Spend your 10,000 hours, your 10,000 iterations, your 10 years. To be fair, the 10 years now, we can get down to 3 years. You don't need to spend 10 years. 10 years is preferable, but we can get that down to 3 years to 4 years by having relentless focus and a relentless drive. And especially now, the reason before it took 10 years is because the information wasn't widely disseminated. Now the information is widely disseminated now. So I use AI as my coach. So I offload every day into AI. From the minute I wake up, if I have a dream, I'll offload it into AI.
Ask it what it means.
No, I have set up, I should have prefaced this first, but I have set up something called custom instructions. And so my custom instructions are what I said earlier to help me achieve all of that. So it's quite an in-depth and custom instruction. So I'm on what am I doing every day? What's my business doing every day? What are my results that I'm doing? Fitness, health, everything. It's all in there. It's tracking everything. So when I put anything in there, it tracks it against my vision and my goals. So it's giving me feedback. Right, it's giving me feedback. Right, it's giving me feedback
I've still
daily.
Got a diary anyway.
But it's giving me feedback daily on am I closer or am I away?
What?
Right?
Don't do that. Hot, cold, stop.
It doesn't say don't do anything, but what it says is it just makes suggestions.
Right.
You said you wanted to do this, but you've been doing this all day. How does that match up with your vision? And it's just simple as that. And I have to say to myself, well, it doesn't. And it's like, it's on me then. Like the computer, I don't have to tell it.
It outlines the point. You know what the deal is. Then you make the decision.
Exactly.
All right, I should.
Yeah.
I'll move on to
and my whole thing is, if I say that I'm going to do X, why aren't I doing X? Then I'm gonna have to coach myself, because this is what my clients come to me for. Okay, I want to do this business, but I can't get the motivation to do it. And then we go through the process. So if I'm not doing that to myself, right, there's no point in me doing it. So what I use, my coaches, the people that fine tune it, because they're the ones who are going to help me get better at it. But my day-to-day coach is my partner, my assistant, is just keeping me on track. You said you wanted to do this. How did you evolve? It's like, I didn't do X, Y, Z. Okay, what do you want to do so that you do that tomorrow? Okay, cool. And I write it down. And so that's keeping me accountable to myself. And the reason why I do that, I add it in my notebooks. And do you know what? I never opened them. Right? I didn't go back to them. I wrote all these notes. I'd write in my calendar. I don't go back to them. One thing I do, I check my AI every day. And so that it works for me. Everyone's got to have a different system. But for me, I enjoy working my AI, and it keeps me accountable. It doesn't tell me yes or no. It always gives me, I'm the final say. It just helps me, remind me of what I said. And it's brilliant because it can remind me of what I said 6 months ago. Like yesterday, I gave a report, and it said, brilliant. This is what you said 6 months ago. And it reminded me, and I was like, whoa. And I was like, I thought, oh, that's genius. You can remind me what I said 6 months ago. I totally forgot. And I was like, ooh. And that kind of got me excited, because that is, alignment. That is, accountability. Like that deep type of accountability. I'd find it hard to remember what my client said to me 6 months ago without going back over the notes.
I mean, this is just a really simple thing. I'm just thinking, but Dougie, you always write onto a thingy pad, don't you? So I'm guessing like the notes. can be on that system anyway. You don't even have to do that. Like, it's just like, I mean, you know, you've got your
pad.
electronic pad.
Yeah. I mean, this is where, before we started filming, this is where
I can read my dyslexic, whatever.
But this is where it's going. I mean, we will eventually all have our personal AIs that we will train according to, you know, our life. Like the other day,
so there'd be lifestyle categories, and it'd be, I want to follow.
Well, it will be like your assistant in the sense that, like the other day, my son, the day he was born, came up as a picture on my phone, and I was like, whoa, I just remembered that, you know. And it was like just looking at it, and I was thinking, like, that was like 9 years ago. So that's the content and the depth of knowledge that this phone has about my life. So I got all my notes in it. That's what I'm saying. It's like your whole experience. So imagine you just take that, and it's an AI running your operating system that knows all your everything, right?
Inner thoughts, what you've been doing, how you've been doing it.
So let me just preface this. Yesterday, I went to something called the Emergence. Let me get this right because this is really important. So it's called Emergent Harmonics, and so it was a conference for blind people that were using technology, and it was amazing. It was so fantastic, and so Kyle, who set the whole thing up, big up for inviting me. I learned so much. The way that those guys are using technology, and the way that it was fascinating. One of the technologies that they were using, it was just the way that they connected the phone with the technology that opened up the world on a whole nother level, right? And if you add AI in the mix, right, that now becomes your eyes and ears looking at all the environment, all the things around you in real time, being a collaborator. That is amazing, right? That is just amazing. And when you think of it from that perspective, all the things that we just take for granted, it's just filming.
And explaining it in a way that it can be understood, depending on whether you're hearing or your eyes or whatever it might be. Yeah. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Wow. I think on that note, it's been a joy. It always is. And thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your journey. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what it'll be at whatever point. Thanks for coming on. I was going to say what really matters, actually. That's the final question. But to be honest with you, I think we've touched on so many different things. Let's leave it like that.
Thanks.